2 years now.
Go was to flee and stay in a domestic violence shelter. And so once I made my mind up and once I kind of get that, like, all right, here's my forward motion, there's really no stopping me after that.
A welder, a mom, a motivational speaker, and so much more.
All I had experience-wise was my Navy welding and waitressing. And the first call back after we sent my resume to 3 companies was a welding job at the shipyard.
A quiet woman who found her voice and is using it to make a difference, using the tools and trades she learned from her family to build a future for herself and her 5 kids.
Being able to talk to the ladies and say, you got plenty of life left to live, you know, to make memories, and the journey might not be perfect, but you'll be able to look back and say, I'm glad I made that change.
And inspire others to do the same as she takes us to the heart of her story.
Manufacturing is not men. Manufacturing is not dirty. Manufacturing is not always hard and sweaty. It's building and making something that is going to go and do something or be for someone.
Kelly Royals is on a mission. She works hard, pushing herself to learn new skills, but working just as hard to inspire others to try something new.
Going into that trade world, you're building a product, but you take pride in what you're doing, and that's something we've lost because of that big gap in experiences. All those people that take pride in, you know, that hard, sweaty, sometimes you get cut, bloody work. It's not always that way. I've never broke a bone or gotten hurt, and even after 15 years of welding, I'm still in the same predicament.
Do you think our nation is slowly changing to realize and understand that they've underestimated the need for skills like
Most
this
definitely.
and the joy that people can get out of careers like this? You think we're kind of slowly changing?
I do. I think so.
It's a work ethic she got from her grandmother.
She had 5 or 6 children. She took herself to the hospital for all of them because my grandfather was in the Navy. And one year it was so snowy, she had to put chains on her tires to take herself to the hospital to have the baby.
Using that creativity to do things that some people have never even dreamed of doing.
I think it all just boils down to when you're younger, you don't have any kind of boundaries on you. You don't really look at any of that until you start really focusing on who's around you and what those people do. And then you kind of make up these boundaries, like I can't do that, I can do this. I have a son that didn't think, when I got my robot stuff, I took it home and said, hey, show me how to use this. He was like, huh? I said, it's just like your game controller, you just press the buttons till it does what you want, right? So 3 hours later, he brought me back some notes. He said, here's what I think's important. And so really you're just stretching that young brain into, you got something that you can actually mold into something else. So young women, I would say young girls before high school, you could probably get them to do loads of things if they try it. But once the women are really in that or ladies are in that high school range, they've kind of made up their mind and they've gotten a goal set in front of them, and so it's a little bit harder.
She was introduced to welding after her father lost a job when she was just a little girl.
He lost a job when I was in high school, and he started doing welding on the weekends at the college. And my brothers, he asked all 3 of us to come. He said, just don't stay home on Saturday. I don't care if you don't weld, just come. And I probably slept through several of the classes, and then I eventually went into the lab and pulled up, you know, the plates and had them give me the gear, and I just started running beads with a stick rod. Didn't know what I was doing, but the instructor was like, hey man, your daughter's really good at that.
Little did she know those skills and her newfound talent would come back to impact her life in such a big way. In the Navy Reserves, they were looking for welders. She stepped in. And years later, in an abusive relationship with 2 young sons at home.
I was in a very rough situation. It was not healthy at all and very abusive, and the only way to go was to flee and stay in a domestic violence shelter. And so once I made my mind up, and once I kind of get that, like, all right, here's my forward motion, there's really no stopping me after that. So once I got to the shelter, I could breathe and think, and the ladies there helped me keep moving forward, like, you need to fill out a resume, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. And so all I had experience-wise was my Navy welding and waitressing. And the first call back after we sent my resume to 3 companies was a welding job at the shipyard. And I got in the shelter in November of that year, and I was out before Christmas. I got an apartment just before Christmas, like 2 or 3 days, so that me and my boys could have our own place.
Determined to use her story, her journey, to help others.
Talk to the ladies and say, you got plenty of life left to live, you know, to make memories, and the journey might not be perfect, but you'll be able to look back and say, I'm glad I made that change. I'm glad I did that thing that made me happy, because now I'm a better person when I come home. I enjoy what I do, or I'm able to provide, and we're able to do things.
And to young girls who may not even consider the trades, like a friend whose daughter wanted to learn more, but was instead pushed away.
She was stoked about it, went to school, talked to the counselor, and the counselor was like, oh no, baby, you can't do anything like that, and she won't talk about it anymore, at all.
So she keeps working, even with the youngest, producing her own children's book about welding and baking, donating copies to schools nationwide.
I just spurred, you know, when they're reading this story over and over, and they're looking at these pictures, and they're really visualizing something. So it was my way of putting an example. A mother, her daughter's interested in what she does for work, and then she asks her, can I do that? And she says, sure. And then she connects it to things that they do, like baking. I wear mitts when I'm baking to keep my hands safe, and I do the same when I'm welding.
Building her platforms in other ways to reach even more people. You see, Kelly has another side you don't see in front of the sparks wearing her jeans and welding protective gear. How about a sash and an evening gown?
I've always been sort of that tomboy. I had a bold cut probably most of my elementary school time because of me and my brothers, but I still like fashion. I like dressing up and being feminine, and so going into the pageant world was my opportunity to do that. At work, I don't get to put much on. Jewelry wise, I don't get to I'll wear girl colors. I know they hate seeing pink and teal and stuff, but it is what it is. So I think that's that artistic side of me. When I was in high school, I also made my own clothes and made pocketbooks, and I love just messing with things. And so I've always been very creative in that sense, and being able to be at work and create, and then spend time in the community, but in a feminine light, and still be creative in that, you know, getting to do my hair, not in a bandana, is just fun. You know, to me, it's not too far off. The skills I had to practice to go and compete on the Mrs. Virginia stage were skills I had to do at work to be a better leader, a better public speaker, and to interview. So I actually got to work on things I was already working on to do that. It was just the dress was different.
How did that Mrs. Virginia work out for you?
So the first year I was 4th runner-up, and I wasn't expecting that. So I went back this year and I got top 10, but the goal was not I gotta win. It's to grow as a person, and because my title now, when I go in the community, I have so many people reaching out about doing different manufacturing and STEM events. I really have been kind of just flowing with that because I want to keep that message of changing the perspective of manufacturing going.
So now, as she travels to learn how to use the latest state-of-the-art equipment herself, missing her 5 children, she is energizing others to go for their dreams, go for the skills that gives them freedom and a way to express themselves, from young boys and girls to adults alike.
I went back home, I'm starting a welding school, and I learned from the best, which was you. And him and I didn't always get along when I was his foreman, but I was like, that made my day. Like, it really means a lot.
Inspiring people and seeing the results of that.
Yeah,
it's got to feel pretty good.
It does.
Subscribe, share with a friend, help us keep growing. telling more positive, inspiring stories of everyday people doing cool stuff. This is The Heart of the Story with Gary Metivier.